When I bought this 300ZX, it didn't run, it was partially disassembled, and it was rightfully clapped. I've since rebuilt the engine, put a brand new from Nissan manual transmission, but the interior not only smells so bad it stunk up my whole house, half of it was missing. But today we're going to completely change that, and hopefully do it on a budget. But if you saw my Porsche series, you know that's my specialty. It was a previous track car and the interior was very tired, and we turned it into this beautiful masterpiece. So my plan is to do the same thing with the Z. The first thing we need to do is remove the entire interior to make sure we're starting with a clean slate. There honestly wasn't much left in the car, and I had already dropped off the seats at the upholstery shop before I even pulled the engine. But I got what's left of the center console out so that we could attack the dashboard. I pulled the dashboard on the Ferrari, I pulled the dashboard on the Porsche project, so I might as well pull it on this. Once the entire interior was removed, we could clean everything. I blew everything off with some compressed air. Then I started clearing out all the trash, and I even found some relics in the process. Then I grabbed the shop vac and started giving all my attention to the carpets. Not only can you see how dirty these carpets are, you can smell it. From there, I used my extractor to see if I was even able to salvage the carpets. I went through about 6 tanks and the water was still blacker than 1,000 midnights, so I knew I needed to bring in the big guns. Kenneth, aka Detail Pro, brought his commercial grade extractor and we went to town. It smelled like a mixture of dead bodies and cat piss. We must have put about 30 gallons of water through this carpet before it even started to clear up. And the water?
No.
Oh my God.
No way.
What is that, dude? Is it blood? It's got like a red tint to it.
No way this shit's all.
But as you can see, the carpet started to look almost new. Next, we can restore this peeling dashboard. I cleaned it up and applied contact cement and then clamped it down using some wood to hold it in place. While that dried, I began stripping down the rest of the interior while I realized at some point they had wrapped the old tweed interior with some cheap vinyl. I cleaned off the factory glue using acetone and disassembled everything I could to give me the best finish. Then I used the old pieces as templates and rough cut new pieces. I'm using a dark gray Alcantara, which should closely match the suede they used in the later production instead of the tweed. I learned the best glue to use on car interior is actually contact cement. Don't use a 3M spray adhesives, it won't hold, especially in the heat. This stuff is really hard to work with, but it gives you a much better finish and it holds on tight. This stuff is much more difficult to work with than the spray adhesives, but it's going to give you a lasting finish. Once I had my pieces wrapped, I started reassembling everything. It came out really good. This was my second time doing upholstery work and I was really happy with it. But before I started reinstalling everything, I made sure to run any wires under the dash that I needed to for things like my gauges and stereo. With that out of the way and the glue dry, I placed the dashboard back in place and put the glove box back in. But before installing the center console, I removed the old e-brake handle and I'm replacing it with this red stitched one to improve the look and feel. And I also installed the matching brake boot onto the center console. And with the new parts installed, I put the center console back in for the final time. I added in the side panels and it started to look like a car again, and my vision was finally coming together. I got a matching shift knob and shift boot and I installed it into the shifter bezel. And after all the work that went into the manual swap, it was very satisfying to put this OEM shift knob into place and finally see a complete manual swap. Before I got too deep into the interior, I figured I would address the stereo. I pulled the antiquated Bose system out and replaced it with these adapters to fit 6.5-inch speakers. And I'm filling those holes with these kicker speakers. I wired it up to the factory wiring and I screwed it into the adapters. Since these panels behind the seats were pretty faded, I hit them with some black carpet dye, and then I reattached the suede trim to them using staples and I put them back into the car. To complete it, I put the centerpiece back in, which pulls all the Alcantara pieces together. For the gauge cluster, I felt like it needed some updating, so I bought these silver metal rings. I carefully pried the cover off the cluster and placed the rings in. They are a press fit, so you just need to put them in and they should hold in place. I reinstalled the cover and then I removed the old halogen light bulbs that barely put off any light, and I replaced them with these LEDs. And before installing it, I tested it to make sure all it worked, and it looked amazing. Then I bolted it in and added the surrounding trim. There was no way I was putting the old steering wheel with the airbag back in, so I went with a Momo Monte Carlo. I didn't like the look of the horn button, so I had a custom Z horn button made, and of course red stitching to match the rest of the car. I took a step back and just admired how far I'd already come. But the job's not finished. The door panels were some of the worst part of the interior, so I yanked them off. And then I wrapped them in the same gray Alcantara. Before putting them back in, I pulled the Bose speakers out, and I used adapters to mount up the same 6.5-inch kicker speakers. Once that was all finished, I put them back in the car and the light was shining at the end of the tunnel. I finished off the door panels with some new window switch trim. And to wrap up the trunk area, I used the same carpet dye on the speaker covers since they were faded, and then I placed the rear quarter interior panels back in to complete the rear deck area. To replace the CD changer, I'm installing this console display. This gives live data from the ECU and you can read and clear codes from it. And the stereo, I wanted an OEM look with modern features, so I have a Continental head unit. I'm making a harness so that I don't have to hack up my OEM harness, and then I just wired it up as plug and play. Before I installed it, I made sure it worked. These little touches make the biggest difference in my opinion. It keeps the original look of the car, but it gives a ton more utility. Now the only thing this beautiful interior needs is two things: ice cold AC and the seats. I attached my gauges and pulled a vacuum and began to fill the system. However, the compressor wasn't clicking on. I even jumped the low pressure switch and still the AC compressor would not kick on, so it wouldn't take the rest of the Freon in. Then I checked the AC compressor and it wasn't even getting a signal, so I knew it wasn't the AC compressor. And just when I was about to give up, I noticed there was a connector next to the low pressure switch that wasn't connected to anything. And when I looked on the bumper, there was actually a little sensor that ran straight to this connector. I figured it's an air temp sensor or something like that, but as soon as I got it connected, the AC compressor clicked on and it sucked up the rest of the refrigerant. So now we had ice cold AC. It was time for the seats. I took him to Bell Auto Upholstery and I had him do HKS fabric through the center, and he rewrapped the rest with fresh leather. They came out amazing, and I know some of you are thinking, why didn't you take the HKS fabric all the way up the top? It was a small miscommunication between me and the upholstery guy, so I ordered some more HKS material and we're gonna fix that later down the road. But even the way they are, they still look amazing. He did a phenomenal job, and even though there's no HKS parts on my car, I wanted it to still feel period correct and give it a little flair. There's only a couple things left. I've got custom floor mats coming and I'm waiting on the gauge pod. The one I have doesn't really fit that well, so I found another one that I want to try out. And then we have a few things left, like flushing the brakes and getting the wheels and tires back on. And then we can finally take this car off the lift and drive it for the first time since we rebuilt it. Once we drive it, put some miles on it and break in that clutch, we're gonna take it straight to paint and do all the body work. But honestly, I'm so freaking proud of myself right now. I cannot believe how good this car came out. But the next episode, we're gonna finish that stuff up, take it for a drive, and we're gonna finally hear those turbos spool up. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button, drop a like on the video if you want to, and I'll see you guys next week.